Yo, what's happening, everybody? Michael here. Welcome back to Outside the Cage. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, guys. To everybody tuning in today or watching on replay, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate everybody that watches. I am joined by, once again, the SMT. Good to have you on, as always. Love that
Thanks,
hat.
buddy.
I really love
Appreciate
that
it.
hat. I'm telling you, I like that hat. I like it.
Thanks, bruh.
So, today's we're gonna recap UFC 249. This is not gonna be a long one, guys. We're gonna do it in an hour or less because today's Mother's Day and we want to be in and out. And I want to just wish everybody that watches this. I wish your mothers and their mothers, everybody's mothers, a happy Mother's Day. I want to extend that to all of you. So, quick backstory before we start our recap. Sam and I watched this together. I hosted. We watched this last night. We were pretty much. I think it's safe to say we were kind of shocked a little bit. We were a little shocked. Like, not shocked to the point where we didn't see this coming, but shocked in the sense that what's going to happen next, kind of. I guess you could say for me anyway. But we watched it. We saw the same thing. We didn't, we saw a fight. And listen, 249, in my opinion, was a great pay-per-view. It was great. It had good action. It had a lot of good fights. So, what I'm going to do now, before I do anything, I'm going to do something that's very uncharacter of me. I'm actually going to say thank you. I'm going to say thank you. Now, Sam, you don't got to do this because I know you're not going to do this. But I'm actually going to say thank you to Dana White. Thank you for bringing back UFC. We needed this. We really did need this. So I'm just going to say thank you for putting on the card. That's all I got to say. Just thank you for bringing back UFC. That's it. That's all I've got to say. But wow. What a fight that was. A lot of things to talk about, so we're not going to waste any time. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get right to the main fight. I know I usually wait for that last, but really this is really the fight everybody's talking about, so let's just get right to it. Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. Wow. What a fight. Now, if you don't know, Gaethje won. I said it. There was a possibility that was going to happen. It was a strong possibility, I said. And it happened. It happened. But before we start raving about Gaethje, before we start giving respect and props where props are due, we got to take a moment to give something to Tony Ferguson. That was one hell of a fight for Tony. He had one hell of a chin. Gaethje was throwing bombs at him, busted him open, busted his shin, did so much damage to Tony, and Tony didn't stop. So I got to say right off the bat, this was probably maybe not the best when it came to striking or fighting-wise, Tony Ferguson, but this was as clean Tony Ferguson when it comes to cardio endurance that I've ever seen. To take those shots and to stay in front of him, and it took you to the fifth round, like literally, I believe, like the last few minutes of the fifth round to finally go down, or at least partially, that deserves a lot of respect. I gotta say, that is very, very incredible. But I guess where my question starts is, now that you have your interim title, now that you know Gaethje is now the number one contender, we kind of discussed in the past how this was going to throw off a lot of plans that Dana had hoped to build by hoping that Tony had won. Now, obviously, this is not going to be too messy because there are some scenarios that it could rewrite itself. But I need to ask you, because this is on Twitter, everybody's saying it. I don't believe it, but I want to hear what you have to say. Do you think that the Tony Ferguson and Khabib fight is officially dead?
No, I mean it could be the fight a year from now. It could be a fight 8 months from now. It could be the fight. Maybe Tony gets a fight a few months from now after he gets medical clearance and his suspension is over. Maybe they match him up with Poirier. And then he wins that. Well, then he's either fighting Gaethje or Khabib or that type of thing. I always feel like when you have fighters that are in the top 5, top 2, top 3 specifically, they're always just one fight away from a rematch or one fight away from a title shot because they're contenders. And Tony got beat up pretty bad last night from a guy who is number one in absolute, like, he throws powerhouse strikes. Every single punch that Gaethje threw at Tony was with power and it was with precision, and Tony's tough as nails. I mean, that's the one thing I learned about Tony. I always knew he was tough, but I don't think there's anybody else that could take the volume of significant strikes to the head that Tony took from Gaethje. I don't think if Habib was taking those shots, he doesn't make it to round 5. If Conor's taking those shots, I don't think Conor makes it at round 2, honestly. Poirier probably can't get out of round 3 or 4 taking those shots. I just don't see it, you know? It's an interesting thing, to see the way that it played out. Gaethje was accurate. Gaethje was precise. Gaethje looks the part of a champion now because he's got big-time wins. I mean, he's got losses in his career. This guy goes out every time with his shield, man. He fights. He tries to finish fights. He doesn't lollygag. I mean, he tried to finish Tony with every single punch. He wasn't holding anything back. He wasn't running away. He was up in his face with pressure. Tony was bringing the pressure. Gaethje met him in the middle. He pummeled Tony essentially for about 4 rounds, 4 rounds worth of whoopings. So give Tony a round or whatever. I thought he had a good round, but he kind of got served. Gaethje's plan was to, whenever Tony came in, make sure that you hit and land, and he executed that. And honestly, man, like, Gaethje looks the part of a champion. He looks to finish. He's exciting. There's power. There's accuracy. He's tough as nails. Tony hit him with some shots too.
Yeah, he hit him at the end of the second round. He hit him with the uppercut that knocked him down, but Gaethje didn't go down.
Yeah, Gaethje is he's a unique fighter in that he's the fighter personified. Doesn't want to go down, not easily defeated. I mean, I've seen him get finished, I think, once. It's not easy to do. And actually, to talk about Tony a little bit, Tony's still a top 3 guy in that division.
Oh,
I'm not ranking Conor higher than Tony Ferguson.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm not ranking, Habib, obviously, and Gaethje now, I think. But, I mean, Poirier's questionable. Is Poirier really better than Tony? I mean, I think maybe that's the match to make.
I think so.
Winner of that fight should probably get a title shot after Gaethje and Habib kind of sort out their situation. So, I don't know. What did Habib say? He wants to fight in July, right?
He wants to fight in July, yes.
I think you set up Gaethje and Habib for July, and then you probably on that, I don't know, maybe on the same card, maybe on a card later in the month or earlier, maybe at the end of June. If Tony gets cleared, go ahead and schedule Tony and Dustin, or at some time within the same time frame, because you're gonna have a unified belt at that point. So
yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to sort out, but the fight to make was Tony and Habib. It doesn't seem like it's destined to happen. I mean, who knows? Let's say Habib loses and Gaethje goes and gets that title. Well, if that's the case, then Gaethje's the fight
to make
for the winner of Poirier and Ferguson.
Of course,
that gives you the rematch with Ferguson and Gaethje, or it gives you Poirier, and Poirier is a legitimate championship contender. We've seen him
prime boxing. Like, honestly, when I watch Poirier fight, that's clean boxing. That's
fun. and actually Poirier versus Conor makes a lot of sense because the first time they fought was at a different weight class, and when they were both very young and fresh green fighters, and they both have changed completely. They're in a totally different evolutionary points of their careers. Poirier's stand-up has evolved, I mean, tremendously. His jiu-jitsu is very high level, and I'd like to see the Conor, and the fights in the top 5 are loaded. There's like 3 fights in that top 5 that I'd like to see, and I'm okay with it, regardless of how it ends up. Very excited for that.
Yeah, something. I gotta tell you, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like, the lightweight division has so much depth right now. The lightweight division has a lot of top 5 fighters. You've got Habib, Tony, Gaethje, Poirier. If you want to throw in Conor, you could throw in Conor, but it looks like he wants to stay at 170. But regardless, you have a $1 million kind of division. It was like the light heavyweight division back in the day with Chuck Liddell, John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson. Like, back when the light heavyweight division was at the really the moneymaker. Lightweight division has become its own. It's fully blossomed. It's got these great fighters.
And I would love, oh, for God's sakes, David, what's going on, David? Thank you for joining me. This is the thing. I'm sorry, I'm about to roast David, but David, like, this is what quarantine does to you. He memorizes my videos. He memorizes everything and starts to think he wishes he was me. Because look at this, lug nuts.
Yeah,
lug nuts.
from the intro videos.
Quarantine's got you all messed up, but he wishes Tony won. Listen, but let's go back to what you said about Tony Ferguson and what could happen. You see, I don't agree with people saying it's gone forever.
No,
Right now, yes, because Gaethje just won. But does that mean it won't happen again?
no, it may become a number one contender fight or a championship fight a year from now.
Exactly. And here's what everybody fails to remember or fails to forget. Tony is not some overrated fighter, because I got into a big debate last night. Guys, if you ever want to follow my Twitter, I'll leave my Twitter name in the link. But I got into so many fights with people calling Tony an overrated fighter. And I swear to God, I have never been in so many fights with people last night about Tony Ferguson, because these people really believed that this fight won't happen. So let me clear this up. I'm going to get this out of the way, then I'll discuss the Khabib-Tony fight. First of all, Tony Ferguson is not overrated. For you to say that just either means you're acting in the moment, you're either upset, or you just were happy that he lost. You're not thinking logistics or thinking literally down to earth. Because that's overreaction, because he just lost. Tony was on a 12-fight win streak from literally a time frame when the flyweight division was 2 months old, in a time frame where there were champions that are no longer here. So he's been in the game, a 12-fight win streak. Okay, he loses tonight. So what? He's fought in the who's who of the division. Sure. He's still a top 3 contender.
Yes.
And even though this does sidetrack the Khabib fight, there's no guarantee that Gaethje will win. There's no guarantee.
Oh, and what if Gaethje pulls out with injury? Then who's fighting Khabib?
See, there are possibilities. So sure. I'm telling people, like, you need to stop with this overreaction that this fight will never happen. Look, it is a cursed fight. I kind of think it's cursed, but does that mean that they won't ever try to pull it off again? No. Dana White even said it in the post-fight press conference. And you got to listen to his words. He said, as of right now, yes. But the key word is right now. That's just because Gaethje just won. But like I said, there's no guarantee he will beat Khabib. And who is he going to fight next after if he beats Gaethje? Who's he going to fight? Conor? It's not going to happen.
Right, but that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a potential Conor rematch, but Conor has to beat someone to get a title shot.
No, yeah.
So that means he's got to beat somebody in the top 4 or whatever.
I'm sorry, just 1 second, Sam. Josh, we're actually going to get to Dominic Cruz, so if you want to stick around for just a couple more minutes, we'll be getting into Dominic Cruz real fast. But I can see he was upset. We actually kind of think the same way. We'll discuss that when we get there. But yeah, you're right. Conor is not, in my opinion, a championship caliber material. And arguing with Conor fans, again, is another heartache. They are the most blind, casual fans you will ever meet. And I'm going to tell you right now, to anybody watching this, you must follow my Twitter if you want to see me go up against Conor fans. They are the most blindest fans in the world. You know they have no knowledge when their profile pic is Conor McGregor. I'm just saying it right now. I'm just saying it. But regardless of Conor McGregor, let's get back to this fight. For me, what this does is this doesn't create a mess. This just creates a new obstacle, if anything. All that this does is it gives us the Khabib and Gaethje fight. Now, like I said, there is a possibility Gaethje could win. Now, we're not going to discuss that till they announce that fight. But if in the event that he does win, then you can legitimately say that the Tony and Khabib fight is officially over. That's the only way I'll ever admit that it's over. As long as Khabib is undefeated, as long as he is still the champion, that fight will never be dead. And to people that say that UFC doesn't want to give Tony a title shot, they gave it to him 5 times with the same champion. They've given him 5 shots at this. It just so happens that it's bad luck. So all I'm going to say, and then we got to move on, but if you want to say anything, you could go right ahead. I respect Tony for this fight. I have a lot more respect for him than I ever did. I respect that he didn't want to just sit behind and wait. He wanted to take the risk. I respect that he was willing to give up and lose a lot. And even though he possibly did, I still respect it because most people like we could have told him no, and he could have did it. But he went out there. He said, "I want to fight." He took the biggest fight to take, especially for Gagey, a guy like Gagey. So I give a lot of respect to Tony, and his chin is one hell of a chin. That's like some Nate Diaz stuff right there, but that was like times 10. I'm just saying. But in all honesty, though, I'm really happy that Gagey did win. This is a great victory for him. This not only brings him higher in his resume, but it also solidifies him as a true contender, a legitimate threat to Khabib. And when that fight happens, I'm just going to have to go off of what happens there, and we'll get to it when it gets there. So that's all I got to say on this fight. Congrats to Justin, but make no mistake, huge reservations for Tony Ferguson.
What I'll say about Tony is, and this has to do with why he took the fight. You don't get paid unless you fight. So there had to have been the thought process that regardless of what's going on with my interim title and what's going on with Khabib and whatever else is in the works, he knew he had to fight to get paid. And he's got a family, he's got a wife and children, I'm sure. He has a gym, right, that he wants to probably open and train and all this. I mean, he wanted to fight, and he's a fighter, and he's a fighter's fighter. Like, that's how you build them. When you build a fighter, a guy that just wants to go out there, put on a good show for the fans, get a win, and continue his march in building his legacy. And he's defending his title. He was the interim champ, and a lot was on the line, and he fought his heart out. He didn't leave anything on the table, right? He clearly fought as hard as he could, and he put it all out there. So it's going to be hard because he obviously holds himself to a high standard, and he's a great champion. He's got the heart of a lion and all of those things. So he doesn't have to be. I know it's disappointing, but he shouldn't be down on himself. He'll bounce back. He'll get a big win, or a rematch or whatever ends up happening. You just never know, right? He'll be back, and he'll be competing for the title in no time.
Well, it might actually be a little bit longer because I just got an update from MMAfightings.com. It says here they have confirmed that Tony Ferguson has suffered a broken orbital bone in his TKO loss. So that's going to take a little bit of time. Tony's getting hurt all the time.
Tony will be on a medical suspension for 6 months or until he gets cleared from a doctor.
So, look, I think we'll just end it at that. I hope he gets better. And listen, props to Tony, but congratulations to Justin. Excellent performance that night. I'm really happy for Justin. Now we get to the fight that everybody on Twitter is blowing up. And we're going to start off with Josh Talks UFC. Josh is the biggest UFC subscriber that I have. I'm going to highlight what he wrote. He was actually writing this as we were going. That Cruz stoppage was terrible. Comes on there's 2 seconds on the clock, and you call it there. Cruz was getting up and trying to scramble. This is a title fight, and legacy and money are on the line. Cruz was going good on that second round, definitely improved from the first round, and Cejudo had a cut after the headbutt, and if Cruz targeted that, it could have gotten worse. Cruz was going good, disgrace. All I'm saying is if you can't call a stoppage there when the fighter is getting back up, and the same ref missed the bad eye poke on the Cowboy earlier in the night, maybe he was drunk, that ref. Shocking. Okay, so what he's saying is that there was Dominic Cruz came out and said that the referee smelled like cigarettes and alcohol, and he just kind of just bashing the referee. But I don't believe it. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't believe a referee would ever be drunk into an octagon. Did he make a bad call? I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest with the eye poke and Cowboy Cerrone, yeah, he missed it. But you can't blame every referee that misses everything. Like, listen, I get it. Referees make some bad calls at times. I understand that. But are you going to really penalize every single thing they do? I mean, in regards to this fight, we'll talk about that. But I'm talking in general. Like, lighten up a little bit. These referees have to perform. They have to keep fighters safe. They make a mistake, they make a mistake. But to call them out on it every time, like, relax. But when it comes to this fight, I'm kind of actually agreeing with him, though, about the stoppage. But before we talk about the stoppage, let's actually talk about the fight itself. So this was the return fight for Dominic Cruz. And for the most of the fight, I got to say, Cejudo did good. Cejudo was pretty good. The first round, he was chopping away at the legs. He was really trying to figure out how to get Dom from moving around, because when you chop those legs down, you slow down his movement. But Dom kept moving. He wouldn't stand still. I liked his movement. I really think he still got it. It shows. There's no ring rust. This man was doing good. And Josh was right. In the second round, Cruz started to, he started to alter. He started landing a couple shots, and there was a headbutt. Now, obviously, that was an accident, but there was a cut. Now, that could have been taken advantage of, but I think that pissed Cejudo off, because when he came back out, boom. Now, this is where the controversy comes, and everybody was blowing up on Twitter, and everybody was talking. I don't know why I keep referencing Twitter, because that's mostly where casuals go, but that's where you hear all the fans. Apparently, so this is what's going on. So in the final seconds of the second round, Cejudo landed a knee strike to Cruz, and it rocked him. It took him down. And he was on top of him, pounding. Now, as the clock was going down towards the final seconds of the round, Cruz was getting up. He was on his feet. He was about to recover, and that's when the call happened. Now, Sam, you saw the call. We saw it together. So I want to ask you, I don't know if I heard you say it last night, but did you think that was a bad call? Because I think it kind of was, but I could be wrong in your opinion. So let me hear what you got to say.
It was a bad stoppage. Dom was on his way up. Dom was getting to his feet. There was a barrage of punches. I mean, to be honest about the whole, like, the way the scene was playing out, Henry was throwing bombs. He was pummeling Dominic. But Dominic was working his way to his feet, where you like to give fighters a chance to compose themselves, make the other guy miss, maybe counter. I mean, we've seen these fights end in the other way, where like the aggressor, who in this case was Henry Cejudo, if he missed and Dom lands on a counter, he could finish him just as well.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, Dominic was talking to the ref. So the only and that doesn't mean that he had to listen to Dominic. It's still his call.
Yeah.
But that means that Dominic was not being finished. That means that Dominic was coherent. He was trying to get out of the way. He was trying to get to his feet so he could defend better. Because when you're down, you're at it's a bad spot to be. You're like a dead duck. You're a non-moving target. Yeah. So he's trying to get to his feet so he could defend better and get on his defensive and then offensive. The worst part about the stoppage was the fact that the ref is right there, sees Dominic ascending to stand up, and he decides to call the fight. If you're going to call the fight based on the pummeling, which is what was happening, you should have called it after the 8th strike when Dom was on the ground still. So basically, if they would have stopped it 2 punches earlier, we wouldn't be having this dilemma right now. Yeah, we would have been talking about, oh, he stopped him. He was on the ground. He landed 8 punches in a row. But by the 11th punch, Dom was coming up.
Dom was on his way.
Which means we were believing that he was recovering and he was getting to his feet. So the ref actually should have stopped it earlier if it was going to be his concern for the fighter, because Dom was not blocking any of the punches and he was on the ground. As he's now coming up, it should have been out of the question. He should not have stopped the fight. No, because he was coming up. And yeah, I mean, the refs talk about it all the time. Sometimes you take into consideration who the fighter is and what's at stake. If it's a title fight, you kind of give the guy a chance because there's a lot on the line. And I agree with that, actually.
I agree too.
But the ref is known as a good referee. Generally speaking, he's a high quality ref. So I'm not going to pour it on him. I'm just going to say it was a bad call, early stoppage, or in my opinion, it's actually a late stoppage. If you were going to call it a stoppage, it should have came when Dom was on the ground getting pummeled, not when he was starting to ascend through the defense.
You're right. I think, you raise up a fair point, because he was on the ground and he was getting hammered away by Cejudo.
It was like 7 or 8 punches, unanswered, no defense.
You probably could have made the call there.
Nobody would have said anything.
If you would, you're right. We wouldn't have this conversation today. But at the end of the day, the call stands. They're not going to overturn it. They're not going to review it. It is what it is. Now, do I think it was a terrible stoppage? Absolutely. But I want to point out what Josh just wrote. He writes, I'm a big Cruz fan, and after last night, the stoppage was terrible, but I have major respect for Cejudo, and he's one of the best combat athletes. I just hope he doesn't retire. And you know something? He's right. Listen, at the end of the day, even though that stoppage was terrible, and I do agree, it could have been stopped sooner, then we would be understanding. But the fact that he was on his way up, and if you watch this fight back, because there's no fans, you could listen if he's hearing and saying to the ref, you could make the argument that Cruz never was rocked. He was just trying to defend himself and get up. So I think you're right. I agree with you. And Josh agrees with you. He writes here, I agree. The fact the referee didn't stop it when he was on the ground, but the second Cruz started to scramble and get up, that was when he made the call.
Right.
But regardless, though, I still think Cejudo did a good job in this fight. I watched it. I think he did good. He had impressive leg kicks, so he knew how to start chopping away at Dominic. Landed a couple of shots, but the fight didn't go as long as I had wanted. I wanted to see it go on just a little bit more. I was kind of hoping that we would have seen it go more. But when he rocked Cruz and he hit him with that knee, I mean, look, you could say, oh, it was a lucky shot, but that was a clean shot. That was a fair shot.
Yes.
And Cejudo really did do a good job in that fight. I as much as I talk crap about him and his antics, he is a great fighter, and I really respected what he did. But now comes the main talking, and people really aren't buying this. He came out and said, I'm retiring. Now, at first when we heard this, I was like, okay, there's no way that that's happening. You just defended your title. You have pretty much everything you want. But when he was in that octagon, he sounded very convincing. He really did sound convincing. And in the post-fight interview, he talked about it a little more. He said that I don't need to do anything. My legacy was set in stone the day I beat Demetrius Johnson. And to me, that's really all I need for my career to cement myself, because he believes Demetrius Johnson is the greatest of all time in flyweight division. So he believes that he's done enough. He's a 2-weight division champion. He defended in both divisions, flyweight and bantamweight. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe. But then he releases a statement saying, retirement, yes, he's going to go through with it. But Dana White knows the number to bring me back. And that's where I say, you're doing this like what Conor did. You're pulling a Conor.
Thanks for the cheese, y'all. See you later.
You want the money. And you know what? I you know something? I'm going to be honest. I think he deserves it. I'm not going to lie. It's debatable. You could debate whether he deserves it or not. I'm not going to judge a fighter on what they're worth. I'm not going to say what they should be making or what they should be making. But I think Cejudo has proven himself. I mean, say what we want about the stoppage. He was owning the fight with Dominic Cruz. You beat TJ Dillashaw. You fight Demetrius Johnson twice. You lose the first time, but then you beat him the second time. You're a 2-division champion. You've defended it successfully. You've defended in both divisions. So for me, I agree. This guy, Cejudo, I'm not saying this guy like he's nobody, but I think he's done enough to warrant the money that he's probably asking for. The reason that he pulled the whole retirement thing was just so Dana would probably give him the money. Now, do I think Dana's going to do it? No, because he literally just said, I'm taking the ban away from him, and we're going to do Peter Yan against whoever the matchmakers put. I want Sterling. So they've already got plans to strip him of the title because they believe that he's really retired. But I feel like this is just him trying to get what he wants. And it's just my opinion, but I think he's proved it. I think he deserves what he's asking. If anything, he's better than what Conor did. Because at least with him, Conor didn't defend in featherweight. Conor just went to lightweight and then took a hiatus. This guy fought in flyweight most of his career, beat the best of the flyweight, beat Demetrius Johnson, defends his title against TJ Dillashaw, even when he was on EPOs and everything, still beat him in that 25 seconds. Then you move up, beat Marlon Morales, get the bantamweight title. That's the prime of the bantamweight. That was the number one contender. Then you fight Dominic Cruz. I mean, I don't know. I think his resume is pretty good. Now, again, you could disagree. That's fine. I want to hear what you got to say.
He is. I mean, he defended both titles, right? Didn't he defend 125 once before he moved on?
He did. He defended against TJ.
And then he won 135 against
Marlon Morales.
And then he defends it against Dom. I mean, he's Yeah, I mean, he successfully defended each belt once. So
Twice.
he's
No. Wait, was it twice? No. I'm sorry. That defense was actually a rematch. I'm sorry. Okay, my bad. So
yeah,
he defended.
I think he's done great. I also he's a decorated Olympian, right? Gold
Mhm.
medal. He's been awesome. He's been a great UFC fighter. He's already had a great career. He could walk away. He could retire. That's fine. If this is a ploy to get the money, which I think it is, because he mentioned it. He said put an extra zero at the end, and so that it's clearly a money thing. But he's trying to make Dana see, like, look, I'm comfortable retiring. I don't need it if the money's not good enough. He doesn't have animosity towards Dana. It's not a negative. There's not a negative energy there. He made it look really good publicly. He basically said, Dana, UFC, thank you guys for everything. It's been an illustrious career. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I might consider hanging around if you guys pay me more. That's all he said. And there was it wasn't bad blood. It wasn't bad
No bad
energy,
blood at all.
because he knows if there's bad blood and stuff, it doesn't help him. Because that's how, bro, if Dana doesn't want something, that's it, bro. He doesn't care. He'll go.
Of course. Yeah.
Nothing's bigger than the UFC, not even Conor McGregor.
Mhm.
The sport always moves on, the division moves on, championship fights move on, and so on. So, to answer your question and your topic there, is this a money grab? Yes. Do I think he'll retire? No.
Mm-mm.
Is he willing to retire if the money doesn't get better? Maybe. Or maybe just walk away and then come back later if the money fight presents itself. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Because a lot of people are arguing that when he announced it, everybody didn't believe him. Obviously, they do this thing like I said, they get irrational. They start just basic on an impulse, and they go, "Oh, he's ducking Peter Yan, he's ducking Sterling." They're like how I was when I first saw this matchup. So I admit I was part of that crew. But like, I look back at what he's done, and I've looked at how he's presented himself and his resume. So Hudo could literally retire and he would have nothing left to accomplish unless he really wants to go up. But for me, could he retire or is he comfortable with it? Maybe. And I think that's best we leave it at that. So now let's move on to this one. You know, Sam, I'm gonna tell you something. There's something called bittersweet. How you just want something so badly and you get it and it's so satisfying. That was this fight. You saw me. You saw it. Oh my goodness. What a fight. And the best part is, it was 20 seconds long. 18 seconds, really. Took the referee 2 seconds to get him.
Yeah, once they start throwing punches, it was really a 5-second fight.
But if y'all don't know or haven't seen the highlight, no, 19 seconds. Okay, we're off by a second, so 19. But if you didn't see it, everybody, Francis Ngannou has proven once again that he is out of this world. Knocked out Rosenstrike in 18 seconds. And that was so satisfying. You see Rosenstrike, you know what? Instead of bashing him now, because he's gonna suffer with this one loss and it just took him out of title contendency, he'll probably have to work his way up. I will say this. He has potential. He's rising. This was his first loss. So now he's tasted defeat. So he's gonna have to rebound from this. That's fine. But let this be a lesson to you. The next time you want to talk tough, the next time you want to call out anybody, you better make sure you know what the hell you're getting yourself into. And the next time you ever say that you think you deserve an interim title shot, you better think twice. That's all I've got to say. That's literally all I have to say. Sweet sensation. Oh,
the knockout was vicious. I mean, he clipped him with so much power. He just hit the right spot, bro. Clipped the chin, boom, and he sent him into orbit. He
sent him into the quantum realm with Darren Till and Ben Askren. I think Jorge Masvidal is probably looking at Ngannou and is like, All right, man, you can take my position for
Yeah.
the best knockout.
And Ngannou's power. I mean, he throws with reckless abandon. I mean, there's no fear at
No
all.
fear.
There is no fear. And I think he's pretty much recovered from that loss against when did he lose? He lost to Stipe, and then his next fight was to
He resurrected himself.
with Derek Lewis, I think.
Well, yeah, Derek. I think it
That
was
was a
Derek.
horrible fight. Yeah, that was a horrible fight.
Yeah.
It looks like he's moved on from those fights. It looks like he's back to his fearless predator self. And like it is just one punch is all it takes. Like he hit Stipe, and there's a lot of people saying that Stipe has never been the same since. Like that's crazy because
Did you see DC's
really only hit
reaction?
Stipe like once or twice.
Did you see DC's reaction to
Yeah.
Ngannou? I'm gonna pull it up. That was crazy. DC. If you don't know who DC is, I swear, guys, like you're really killing me right now. But DC, like he saw that, and his jaw dropped. His jaw. And you know what? I'm gonna show it. I'm gonna show it to you guys real fast here, and I don't care for copyright strike because I'm gonna put the volume down and just watch Daniel Cormier's reaction to this. If they show it, I think they show it somewhere. Oh no, they don't. But look at this knockout. Like, look at the way Rosenstrike is out. He's out, and there's not a flinch on Ngannou.
Out
But
like a light.
Out like
a
here
light.
it is. Here it is. This is it. Look at this.
Ooh.
Not only did he look scared, but he was like, "All right, I'm gonna fight Stipe and then retire before I ever have to fight."
And who knows what's gonna happen with that fight? He might have to fight Ngannou for an interim belt.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing. But like I said, guys, I'm not gonna bash Rosenstrike. You guys know how I feel about him. I think he just was too cocky when he was up and rising. The lack of respect he showed his opponents. That's just me. I didn't like his behavior. So now my wish was granted. He got humbled. And he got humbled in the worst way you could get humbled, by losing within less than 20 seconds. That's the worst way. But let this be a lesson.
Yeah, man.
Let this be a lesson. All right, last two fights, and then we're going to get out of here, guys. We'll actually do a couple bonuses, and then we'll end it. We're not going to try to get this fast. Let's get this one out of the way, because this is actually a little bit shorter. Greg Hardy against DeCastro. You and me both watched this. This was actually an impressive fight for Greg Hardy, keeping the pace. And I was really impressed with Greg Hardy. I know everybody doesn't like him because of his past. I know he's not a good individual, but I got to say, as an athlete, as a fighter, he is definitely a good fighter.
He's getting really, really good.
You fight DeCastro, who knocks out Tuscan in that fight in Australia, that one punch knockout. And I said to myself, I'm like, wow, there's no way that Hardy is getting out of the first round. But surprisingly, he did well. Now, there was a moment where he did break his toe. There was actually somebody said that he actually hurt himself, so that's why he wasn't moving too well. You could make that argument if you want to say Greg Hardy shouldn't have won. But at the end of the day, Hardy was keeping the pace. He threw a couple of good punches, landed some leg kicks. Now, his leg was getting damaged, but I got to say, he held up well. He put the pressure on. He kept the pace, and that was a good fight for Greg Hardy. I was really impressed. I don't know about you, though.
Greg Hardy looked good. He clearly has progressed in his striking. His defense is much better. He responded to the leg kicks that DeCastro was throwing. To be honest with you, I was very pleased to see his progression as a fighter. He's learning really, really quick.
Yeah.
So you got to keep in mind, he's only been fighting for a couple of years, maybe 3 years. He's been out of the league, out of the NFL, and he's transitioning really, really well. He's starting to understand some of the intricacies and the finer details of fighting.
You see the head movement that he had? Right. Did you see like his...
Bro, that's one piece of boxing, right? Head movement. Don't get hit. In a division where one punch knocks you out, he seems to be a pretty fast learner, and he himself is dangerous as a fighter. So it's good to see, because the heavyweight division needs scary fighters to compete with guys like Francis Ngannou and Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier. It's the UFC heavyweight division is a division that has good fighters in the top 5 and then a bunch of gatekeepers in the to fill out the top 10 and then just interchangeable parts, 11 through 15.
Yeah.
So this progression that we're seeing from Greg Hardy indicates that athleticism and really hard dedicated training can really have these guys ascending through the ranks in a division like the heavyweight division. It's different in like lightweight and welterweight and middleweight because those guys are all lifers, right? These heavyweight guys are all pretty much knockout artists with the exception of, Alexei Olnik, who's a submission specialist, and Fabricio Verdum and these guys. Most of the heavyweight division, they're relying on knockouts, right, with these heavy bombs. So he looked good. He'll continue to get better. And I mean, not to say I'm a fan because, like you said, bro, he's a scumbag in real life and personally. But the fresh blood at the top of the heavyweight division is great to see, and he's a surging star.
Of course. Now, I will say this about Greg Hardy. As bad as what he did in real life, I'm a guy that usually is willing to give people second chance if they work for it. Now, not everybody, but I'm saying people that work hard, because I've seen what happened to Greg Hardy after his career went sour. He had nothing. He was at the bottom of the barrel, and he worked his way to rebuild himself and kind of rebuild who he is, and I respect that. He did it by himself. He didn't ask for help. He did it all on himself, and I think MMA has kind of resurrected him as a person and as a fighter. So I'm not defending him, but I'm just saying that I think that people that do it by themselves, they don't get, handed everything. They work to be redeemed. I always look at them better. You know what I mean? But not everybody, because that statement can be twisted and turned by many people. Somebody could look at this and say, oh, so you're saying rapist, you're saying this and that. Like, I'm just saying, because this is very sensitive. It's hard to approach this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say this. Greg Hardy's a phenomenal athlete. He's definitely coming along well. And I think eventually he will get that power to do the one-round knockout. Now, not Ngannou power, but something along the line of maybe the Reem.
He's good for the division. That's
good,
100% true. He's good for the sport and the division.
Yes. All right, last fight, and then we'll wrap it up. Jeremy Stephens and Calvin Kattar. Woo. Everything we thought about this fight came true. I'm going to let you take the floor.
All right, so in terms of this fight in particular, Calvin Kattar got the knockout against Jeremy Stephens via elbow. I'm not sure about how far into it. I don't remember, but Kattar's real. He's a real threat in that division. What's interesting about this fight is Jeremy Stephens missed weight by 5 pounds, and that puts him at a clear advantage. Energy, hydration, durability, less likely to get a concussion, that sort of thing. I was very impressed by his poise, his ability to make Stephens miss, and then him land and counter. And the finish was awesome. Kattar is the real deal. This just kind of solidifies it because there was a point where people were talking about Jeremy Stephens as a contender for a title shot.
Yeah.
So, and he's a very good fighter. He's experienced. He's got power. There's bombs. And Kattar, weathered all of that. So,
of course, yeah.
I think in my perception, I see Kattar as a legitimate, top 5 fighter now because he beat a guy who has been a top 5 fighter and he did it, in a very violent fashion, to win by that type of a finish.
That
second
was
round,
brutal
elbow,
finish.
right? So it's impressive. He catapults himself in the rankings. He puts himself in a position to continue to ascend. He already has the attention of fans and matchmakers. So expect a big fight from him next time. I'm not sure what the rankings are currently. I don't know if you could
look at them. We'll take a look at them.
Because I know for a fact that he was, you think about Jeremy Stephens, he's
featherweight.
He's a Jeremy Stephens. Yeah, it probably puts him
in the 7. Maybe swap Stephens
right.
with Kattar.
So now it's guys like Frankie and Yair and
Mhm.
Zabit, these surging guys
Zabit.
that puts them in a position where they have to, they're
And
going to have to
Cater
start.
fought Zabit. That's the thing. Cater fought Zabit, and that fight was actually a good fight too. That was a
Sure.
good fight.
Yeah,
So
and
for
he
me,
actually, from what I understand, from the way I saw that fight, is if that was a 5-round fight, what happens the rest of the way? Because it was a 3-round fight that ended up at a decision where Zabit had the first 2 rounds, but clearly
the third
Cater had
went
the
to
3rd
Cater.
round, right?
Yeah. So I guess that really clears it for UFC 249. That's really it for us. So overall, I think this pay-per-view lived up to expectation. It was a great way to bring back UFC.
Sure.
I'm happy that this week we have a few fight nights, and I got one on my birthday, so I'm really happy about that. But before we go, we got a couple minutes. Don't want to wait too long. Let's just do this real fast. Taking a look at the rankings and taking a look at what could be coming, there are no positives, meaning we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know what fights are going to be scheduled. But what we do know, and what I can confirm, is that Amanda Nunes is fighting. She will be taking on, I believe, I don't know. I think it's in the bantamweight division. I forgot what division. I think it could be. I don't know. I gotta look back. But I remember she was fighting. Crap. You see, this is what happens when you need your cue cards. You need to start looking at what you're. I think she's fighting in featherweight. I don't know, guys. You can comment down if I made a mistake, but she's fighting Spencer, and I think it's featherweight. I think it is.
Felicia Spencer.
Felicia, I think it's in featherweight. Is it featherweight?
Sounds about right.
Sounds about because they don't have the rankings.
She beat Holly. Who else did she beat recently? She beat Valentina at 135.
Ooh, when you beat Valentina, that's a good position for yourself, I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's 250, and as of now, we don't know what's going to happen. But my last question to you is: after looking at these rankings and determining, in your opinion, what weight class would be, because there's a rumor about Fight Island. They're saying Fight Island is really going to happen. It's going to be like International Fight Week on Fight Island. They're doing something right now. So my last question, and then we'll end it. What fighters are, in your opinion, if you're looking at the weight class, what are the fights to make? Because they've already confirmed Volkanovski is getting the rematch with Max Holloway. They are working on booking a fight for Conor McGregor. We don't know exactly what, but Dana White doesn't want to give it to him because of the lack of sales. But I think pay-per-views will make up for it. Then you've got Israel Adesanya against Paulo Costa. They're just waiting on Costa. And then, like I said, heavyweight, you've got Daniel and Stipe, but Stipe's on hiatus because of Corona. He's a firefighter, first responder. So in reality, what weight division do you now see? Because you've already got lightweight set. Because if Khabib wants to come back in July and fight, you've got your lightweight. Where do you go from here, and what are the fights to make, like, in your opinion?
All right, let's look at let's start at heavyweight.
Sure.
All right, so right now the fight to make is Stipe and DC.
Stipe. Hashtag Stipe.
Stipe is unfortunately injured. I guess his eye's in bad shape. He's got a injured retina, so that's going to put him on the shelf. He might, the division might move on without him. They'll do an interim and then maybe try to unify later. I don't know. I know Daniel Cormier wants that fight, and that's really all he wants.
Yeah, he doesn't want anything else.
Right. So the other piece there is Francis is going to want to fight sooner rather than later. He's surging.
Yeah.
So he already beat Junior Dos Santos. I don't want to see him versus Derek Lewis again.
No, I don't want to see that.
So and he beat Rosenstrike and all of that. I don't know.
You should really have him fight DC. That's really, I mean, I know it's not a good matchup.
DC doesn't want that fight. That's the only issue. So that's difficult. So when it comes to the women's divisions, that's pretty easy. So it's like when you look at the flyweight, so it's Valentina's division, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
So
Valentina is beating everybody.
Yeah, I don't really care who they put up against her. She's gonna win. In the strawweight division, that's interesting. I think the Andrade versus Zhang fight is legit.
You could also do Rose, because they were going to do Andrade against Rose. They were going to do the rematch, but you could argue Rose could get a title shot. It's arguable.
Sure. So there's fights in that division. Ansarov and Jacek, they could fight. Let's go to the women's featherweight division. So
they don't have nobody here. That's the thing.
The reason is they don't have a roster for that weight class. So it's really a bunch of the fighters from the 135 So like Jermaine Durand, that would be a fight to make. I don't want to see a Holly Holm rematch. Nothing
Nah, I don't want to see that.
Holly, but that's kind of come and gone. I don't know. Aspen Ladd, maybe it's too soon. I don't know. We'll see. Let's slide up to the other divisions there. So you were talking about Paulo Costa, right, against Israel Adesanya. That's the fight to make there. Darren Till needs, I think,
Robbie Whitaker.
He needs to beat guys in the top 5. I mean, he really probably should not even really be ranked 5, honestly.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. He did come off that fight against Kevin Gastelum, but for me, I don't think that's enough. I would have him go against. I think they're going to do Robert Whitaker. I think that's the fight they're trying to make. I think they're going to make that fight. If you put him against Whitaker, that's actually a good contender to boost him. I'd
like to see Jared Cannonier. He's a really good fighter. I'd like to see him get a contender shot. Because if he wins it, then he gets a title shot. That's probably the best thing to do there.
Jared is a very good fighter. I got to say.
He's really, really tough, man. From the welterweight division,
we know exactly where we're going with this.
Right. The fight to make is Usman versus George for the title. Now, if that doesn't happen, I don't want to see Woodley Usman just yet as a rematch.
I don't want to see that.
I don't want to see Colby and Usman.
No.
So to me, that's really the only fight to make, and then you go from there. And then in the light heavyweight division, I don't know, man. Like
John Jones,
John Jones arguably survived his 2 toughest fights. I mean, that maybe the Gustafsson fight 5-6 years ago, whatever that was. Maybe it was longer. I don't even remember.
I propose in this division, what I propose, and I still stick by it, I believe you should do a title contendency fight between Dominic Reyes, Thiago Santos.
And then the winner of that gets a rematch against Jones.
But then you've also got John, who's also in the top. He's also considered a title contender now.
Corey's been surging. Corey Anderson.
He lost to John, so he's not anymore.
Well, what I'm saying is when a guy is surging and then a guy beats him, that catapults him in front. Yeah, so that's why you see, Jan is kind of moved up like that. But I mean, I don't like Jan's chances against John Jones. But
like I said, I think the fight to make is just these two for an interim belt, and then you unify against John Jones in a rematch. I think that's really where I'm at. Anthony Smith is fighting this week. I don't know about Anthony Smith.
He lost to John. He lost to John pretty bad.
Yeah, he did.
And
like we said,
gotten better. These guys get better in time.
And lastly, lightweight, we already know where this is going. You've got Gaethje fighting now. But then after that, you got so much room to work with. You've got Dan Hooker.
That division's easy to make the matches. That's true.
Like I said, look, Conor, I don't know why he's in a third. He has not fought in this division. He's only had 1 fight in the division, or 2 fights. I'm sorry. It was Eddie Alvarez and then Khabib. The Alvarez fight, you can argue, was just really easy for him because no disrespect to Eddie, but Conor was going to get that fight. Even I knew it at some point. I had to be realistic. But when you fight Khabib and Khabib mauls you like that, that's not a good look. So I don't understand why he's here. But I will say this. There are some good up-and-comers like Islam Makhachev, Alexander Hernandez. You've got 2 guys up-and-coming.
Yeah, but they're a couple years away.
They're a couple years, yes. So what I would propose, so you take Tony out of the picture. It's Justin and Khabib. After that fight, whoever wins, they're the champion. Now, you could do Dustin Poirier against Tony Ferguson, or they were saying Dustin Poirier against Dan Hooker. Those were the 2 scenarios because Dan Hooker's on the rise right now. He's on a good win streak. Or you can have Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier because Poirier and them have been going back and forth, but then there's rumors. We don't know what Conor wants. All I know is that Conor has to fight somebody worthy. And if he fights Dustin –
I don't care what Conor wants. The division has to move on, and there's fights to be made, and they're good
fights.
This
division has moved on. You take Conor's name out of it, look what you've got. Khabib, Tony, Justin. Dan.
I like Conor versus Tony Ferguson. I like Conor versus Poirier. I like Conor versus Gaethje. I love those fights. I love Tony versus Poirier. There's so many fights to make. There's okay with all match.
It's sure. Like, how you consider it's like Halloween for the lightweight division. You get to pick your treats in the matchmaking. That's like a matchmaker's dream. So that's where I sit with lightweight. And if we take a look quickly, featherweight, like we said, Max Holloway against Volkanovski, that's the rematch. You could argue Zabit could probably get a title shot after the winner of that fight, whoever it may be, or you could do.
Zabit needs to fight Ortega, though.
That's what I was about to say. Or you have Ortega fight Zabit, and then you throw him a title shot. But the featherweight's got some good depth. You got Yair, the Korean Zombie. So you got some guys up in there. So I think that's pretty good for the featherweight. Bantamweight, now we know that this is true. He is leaving. They've stripping him of the title. So it's going to be Peter Yan against rumored Sterling. So it's probably going to be these two. They confirmed Peter Yan, so he's definitely fighting for the title.
I say you set up a small tournament with the top 6 guys, man.
You're right. Have Aldo, Rafael, Corey, right. Peter, all them. And honestly, that's a good idea. I think, something? Josh pointed that out. He would like to see a big bantamweight title tournament.
Yeah, you could have it sorted out in 2 pay-per-view cards.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Or even one on fight night, then one on the on the fight night ones. You would do the early fights, the beginning bracket, and then you get to the main pay-per-view. You do the final stage. You know what I'm saying?
I would do the fights back to back, man, on the same card as a main event.
You could. Yeah. I mean, hey, you could. I'm not gonna lie. You can
open with a fight between, Rafael Assunção and Aljamain Sterling, and then go with Yan and Moraes, and then you
Aldo
just put
and Corey.
Yeah, just set it up, man, and then you got those 3 fights. You're gonna have 3 winners, right? And then you set up the next fight, and then you set up the next one, and you got yourself, a number 1 contender, or you got yourself the top 2 guys, and you put them, and you got your belt.
I agree. That's actually a good idea. And considering I know Peter Yan, I'm gonna say it's a safe bet to see Peter Yan.
The pound for pound rankings. Let's just look at that real quick. We got a minute here. This
dumb.
Is so bad. John Jones being in it just so bad. Robert Whittaker probably shouldn't be in there. Dominic Reyes probably shouldn't be in there.
Mm-hmm.
Conor McGregor, I don't think should be in there,
or at least not in the top 10.
No, he shouldn't be in the top 15.
The
rest of them are good though. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I don't understand how John Jones is there after
John Jones. You know what they're going to do.
He's gotten his last fight he lost.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it the first time. I thought he lost 3-2 in rounds.
I mean, for me, I think the Dominic Cruz one was the solidifier for me. I think that was not Dominic Cruz, Reyes. Dominic Reyes. I'm sorry.
When I first watched it that night live, I thought Reyes won at 3-2. I watched it again. I thought Reyes won at 4-1. So, I mean, I whatever, man.
Hey, man, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't get why he's on here, but everybody argues that he's never lost. But again, he's been in so much trouble. We already talked about this. We don't need to go into more detail about this. Last thing we forgot to talk about is flyweight. I have no idea what's going on with this division. I really do not know what Dana White wants to do. All I know is that you've got to have this fight again. Ferdego and then Benavidez, you're going to have that rematch because Ferdero, he won the fight, but he can't take the belt because he missed weight. And I think Dana wants the rematch. So
to be honest with you, the 135 division's not great. The top 5 and 6 are awesome, whatever. But that 125, those guys got to just move up to bantamweight and fight their way into the rankings. That's pretty much it.
I agree. They're going to have to. I feel bad because the flyweight division at one point was okay. You had Demetrius Johnson.
When Cejudo abandoned it, I mean, that's the writing on the wall.
Honestly, Cejudo should have stayed in flyweight or at least should have held the second belt. I don't know why Dana took that belt from him so he could focus on bantamweight because Cejudo, I'll give him credit. He made the flyweight division relevant when he beat Demetrius Johnson and then you beat TJ Dillashaw. So Cejudo definitely brought some hype to the flyweight division. That was the first fight on ESPN. So It sucks, but you know what? It is what it is. And that's it for Outside the Cage. So guys, thank you for tuning in. We did reach the hour mark. We just want to take this moment to thank Sam, as always. Thank you for coming on, man. Once again, everybody, have a happy, safe Mother's Day. Stay safe, everybody. And if you agree with anything we have said, comment down below. If you disagree, I'd like to hear your points as well. Please don't be that blind Conor fan that goes, Conor's going to beat him in 1 round. Just actually, if you have something actually smart and strategic to say, like actually something very good to say, please write it down. I'm always up for a good debate. I am always interested in a good debate, but just please don't be a blind idiot fan. That's all I ask. As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe, everybody.